Welcome to OAA Now, your home for Oakland Activities Association news and information. Here's your host, Sammy Taormina.
Welcome to OAA Now. I'm James Earl Jones. Geez Louise, what in the blue blazes here? Correction, I'm sorry about that. I'm just a little under the weather. My voice sounds like James Earl Jones, but I'm Sammy Taormina, blogger of the Dragons Den, and one of the hosts of Between Taorminas on ON TV. Very unique, interesting boys basketball and girls basketball games. Over the weekend we had the Girls Point South tournament over there, classic over there, involving some of the OAA teams. Of course, Harrison was in at North Farmington, and also we had the North Farmington tournament, the Oakland tournament, where a lot of the OAA teams were there as well. And also wrestling's underway as well. I mean, a lot of questions do linger. Let's look at a couple games. I'm very impressed with them. For the boys' side, we're going to go boys basketball first and girls basketball, and then we'll do other miscellaneous stuff here on the way now. For the game at Stony Creek, of course, that was a heck of a game between Stony Creek and Adams. Adams dominated that game. I thought they were the better talented team. Stony Creek, of course, hardworking team, of course, led by Scott Reeder and Jack Allen. They found a way to win that game, 59-56 over Adams. Of course, Spencer Littleson missing a last second three-pointer at the buzzer, and it was a huge win for Steve Norgrove and his Cougars. When you look at that game, Adams dominated that one, and the Highlanders looked as smooth and as it could be, but they had some, and I noticed it was John Hall's first game back after shoulder surgery, and that was something that I couldn't believe. Well, he missed 2 games, of course, recovering from it. He should be back for his home opener tomorrow when Adams takes on Lake Orion in that one. Another game here I was very much disappointed about was with Lake Orion when they took on Oxford on Thursday night at the in the Dragons' Lair. It just did not. I mean, when you have the big four of Oxford, of course, Delvin Alexander, Jamal Thomas, you have Mason Virus and also Connor Elzman. They all scored 57 of their 61 points in that one against the Dragons. Now, don't give me the excuse the Dragons are very young. I mean, yeah, they're young, but still, this is going to be a talented basketball team later into the season. And to see what happened in this game, you know what I mean? You got to give credit also to Malik Elmark. He played very well in that game. I thought that he was clearly the team's best player. But I noticed in that game with Orion and Oxford there was too much individualism on the Dragons' part, whereas Oxford just dominated in the interior. They rebounded, they controlled the game, and used their experience to really look at what they did to the Dragons, and it was mind-boggling to see what they did. And you got to give Oxford a lot of credit for what they did in that game on Thursday night. Of course, Clarkston knocking off Orchard Lake St. Mary's early in the year. Huge win for Dan Fife and his Wolves. Foster and Warner played well. They got a very good, of course, their guard and Drew Myers is a very good player. Taven Throgmorton, I'm not sold on him, but they got a very good 5 also there. But it's a huge win for Clarkson. Also, they went in and blew out Avondale the other day. It was kind of expected to see with Clarkson. I mean, Avondale, I haven't been sold on them at the interior. When you look at it here, you got to give credit to where credit's due. Avondale's they're going to be an interesting team, the Blue, this year, but I didn't think that they were going to be that impressive, against Clarkston. I mean, speaking of West Bloomfield, of course, the Lakers, Trishan Jackson, I don't know what to say about it. He's that good. 40 points against Macomb, Dakota, on the road, hostile environment, and in a huge win. When you look at what happened in that game, West Bloomfield was down most of that game, and they found a way to win that one. You got to give credit to Jeremy Dana and his staff. But Tristan Jackson, guy's the real deal. I mean, like he not only played quarterback in football, but also he can play point guard. I still think, in my opinion, he should be a small forward under Jeremy Dana's team. But you got to give credit where credit's due. I mean, like, but Tristan Jackson scoring 40 points, that is just absolutely incredible and he's only a junior, and next year's gonna be a senior year, and this guy's gonna be just insane. I mean, when you look at West Bloomfield, they were very impressive in that game against Macomb, Dakota. Another team that I looked at that would look very good. I was very impressed with North Farmington. The Raiders, of course, they dominated their own Oakland tournament. They crushed some teams. Jerome Rogers, very good player. Jacoby Jobert also there. But also, you got Anthony Quasica, a senior, who's very, very talented. You got to look at what North Farmington. I think North Farmington's going to give Clarkson everything it can handle heading into the season, especially in league play. I expect North Farmington to be right there heading into the season with the Raiders. And then, of course, Southfield also. We're going to go over the Martin Luther King the Oakland tournament, of course. Oxford was there, too. I mean, it was a surprise for them that they ended up playing Detroit Henry Ford and not Southfield Lathrop. And it was a shock for Stepan Henning and for him, because he wasted a whole year scouting Southfield Lathrop, you know what I mean, thinking that they were going to play them. They were assured that, and then all of a sudden they get to go play Detroit Henry Ford, and here's the team, Detroit Henry Ford, and knocked out Southfield, of course, on that on that Saturday. I mean, they played twice. I noticed that, and then they went in there and just destroyed Detroit Henry Ford 78-20. 78-20. That's like a destruction waiting to happen. When you look at that score, you got to give props to Stepan Henning also for keeping his troops motivated, keeping them ready to play. They got an interesting game coming up. It'll be interesting to see what happens with Oxford heading into the regular season. They still got to play. They still got to play Stony Creek in the regular season. They still got to play West Bloomfield in the regular season. It's not going to be an easy games coming around for the Wildcats heading into the season. They're one of the favorites in the blue. But we'll see what happens with them. I was surprised, of course. Rochester did not. I didn't see what happened to Rochester. I didn't think they played a game yet. They do play in that holiday tournament coming up in 2 weeks. Of course, they play Warren Woods. They play Plymouth. Plymouth's not a bad team. It's gonna be a tough match for Rochester heading into that one. When you look at the games that they play, Rochester's going to be in for I think they're in for a rude awakening. I was also impressed with Bloomfield Hills, how they the Big Three era, of course, is over, of course, but they still look very good. They look very impressive. Southfield, of course, they're led by their center, Isaiah Green. He had a huge game. And then and also he had a huge game in that tournament, also against Walled Lake Central, in which Southfield won that one in a tight one into that one. A team I think is going to keep an eye on, and I'll surprise some people, is Hazel Park. The Vikings are going to be a very unique team. When you look at Hazel Park, the Vikings, they're a team that's noticed. I think that they're starting to turn the corner around. But when you look at the Vikings, this team, it wouldn't be surprised if Hazel Park beats some people this year, heading into the campaign, especially in the gold. Even though the gold, you got Berkeley in there, it's going to be tough. You got a couple others that are going to be tough. You got Ferndale, of course. Ferndale lost a tough one the other night. But keep an eye on the gold. I think Hazel Park. It would not surprise me if Hazel Park becomes a dark horse in that league heading into the year. When you look at other teams around the area, of course, Troy, Athens, they played a lot of early games. They beat Sterling Heights Houston. but they lost to Chippewa Valley earlier in the campaign. Troy Athens has a lot of experience back. They're solid up front. We got Corbin Balaj and John Van Hoff. But when I look at their guards, of course, I'm not really impressed with them. But I still look at Troy Athens. They're going to be a good team to be reckoned with. Of course, when you look at the Red Hawks, we got nothing from Oak Park yet. They'll start playing some tournament games coming up, heading into the year. I expect Oak Park to do some damage as well this year. Excuse me. And you look at other games around the area. You look at some teams around the area, of course, Stony Creek, I mentioned. Berkeley, of course, are going to be all right. You got Jonathan Rander back. He'll probably carry a lot of the load this year for the Bears. I expect Radner to carry Berkeley this season. He'll do well for him. Troy, of course, I don't think Troy's played a game yet, you know what I mean? Whereas I still think Troy's going to be very solid heading into the year. Of course, we know tonight Avondale plays Rochester, and that's going to be an interesting game when you look at it right there, heading into that campaign. And also, of course, heading into the week, you got some interesting games. You got Lake Orion Adams. I think it's going to be a closer than people think game. You know what I mean? When you look at the matchup here between Lake Orion and Adams, of course, Adams has a lot of experience, back, of course, even though they got Spencer Littleson back, but it's going to be an interesting game. You got Lake Orion, of course, guard heavy, of course. They got one of the best backcourts in the county with them, Malik Elmick and Joe Turnbull. You got Noah Harris, David Gomez, and and also got Jalen Wiggins also, you know what I mean, who can also play. I got Nick Fox as well. But when you look at this game with Orion and Adams, it's a rivalry game. John Hall, for some reason, likes to play Orion. And I think I know Lake Orion likes to play Adams. And, they have had a lot of interesting games in the past. Of course, last year, Adams beat Orion in a rout because the Kennedy Williams went off, and Adams put a very good pressure defense led by their defensive specialist, which is Chris Flynn, the assistant coach. When you look at Chris Flynn as an assistant coach, there's a reason to his man is why he's good. And there's a reason also why Dave Tooley at Lake Orion is also good. You look at the situation, no doubt, with what happened over there. You got two of the loudest coaches going against each other, and they're both assistant coaches. You got John Hall's assistant Chris Flynn on one side, Tom Reese assistant Dave Tooley on the other side. So when looking at that matchup, it's going to be unique because you're going to have two screaming coaches going against each other. The key is, can the Dragons get up for this game? Adams is going to be ticked after what happened against Stony Creek. And that's something that I expect could happen. I think Adams will get up for this game. I think Orion will get up for this game. But right now, early on, Lake Orion's playing a very brutal schedule. Of course, they got to play They still got to play Stony Creek. They still got to play Bloomfield Hills, Southfield, Clarkston, Southfield, Lathrop. It's not going to be an easy road for this team when you look at it from that perspective. And also, you got to look at Adams, of course. Once they get in the red place, still got to play Clarkston, Southfield, Bloomfield Hills, North Farmington all twice, and that's not going to be an easy situation for Adams. So Adams is going to need all the wins they can get. I think Lake Orion also needs to get all the wins they can get too, heading into their league play. And I still think the Dragons' schedule is more vicious than the Highlanders, But like I said before, because Adams plays a lot of East Side teams, of course, Utica Ford, those type of teams, you know what I mean? That I don't understand why Rochester schools have a good relationship with Utica, I guess. It would be more, I think it would be interesting, no offense, in the girls, if I could talk about girls for a minute. We'll talk girls in a whole other subject, but it'd be interesting if Brandon played played Rochester. It would be the Battle of the Sheldons. That would be perfect because you got brother versus brother. It would be a good matchup. It'd be a heck of a game, I think. You know what I mean? If brother versus brother played. I mean, it's a unique situation, you know. Of course, you used to have daddy play daughter, when Flushing played Davison. You know what I mean? That was unique, you know what I mean? But unfortunately, you know what I mean? It's a tough situation now that both Davison and Flushing are now in two different conferences now. Flushing, of course, going to the Flint Metro League, and Flushing, of course, and Davison is in the Saginaw Valley Conference, and it's going to be very interesting when you look at those teams, you know. But back to boys, I still think, you know, I would have to take experience, unfortunately, but I still think it's going to be a very close game. I think it's going to be a 5-point game, maybe a 3-point game, you know. But unfortunately, you got to go with the home team here in Adams, and that's not going to be. And it's hard for me to say, but but this game I think will get Lake Orion probably back. If they get blown out, then a lot of these teams are going to say, you know what, Lake Orion, easy win on the schedule, you know. So that's what a lot of people are going to say about this game, no doubt. All right, now, everybody, now when we come back, we're going to talk about girls basketball here on OAA Now.
Prescription drug abuse is a national epidemic. The new way to obtain drugs is through parents' or grandparents' medicine chests. Removing prescriptions from your cabinet is the best way to keep drugs out of the hands of our young people. We've got to work together to protect our teens, our seniors, and our environment. Clean out your medicine cabinet today. Please participate in Operation Medicine Cabinet and drop off your unwanted or expired prescriptions at one of our law enforcement drop-off sites in Oakland County. We can't ignore this situation anymore.
Welcome back to OA Now. I'm Sammy Taormina, blogger of the Dragon's Den, one of the hosts of Between Taorminas on ONTV. Very unique what happening in girls basketball this week. Of course, Southfield Lathrop losing a heartbreaker to Toledo's Rogers at Grosse Pointe South. Of course, Harrison winning at North Farmington, knocking off Highland Park, Chandler Park Academy. Clarkston losing a tough one to the host, Grosse Pointe South, 54-49 behind 25 from Davenport, from Erica Davenport, and 13 points from Taylor Lugenbach. They're freshmen. They've hyped up a lot this year. Of course, Stony Creek is 2-0. You know what I mean? They got a big one tomorrow night with Oxford. Oxford, of course, they won their first game, knocked off Westland John Glenn. Big one tomorrow for them. They take on Stony Creek. And then you look at around the area. Of course, Ferndale lost a tough one. Royal Oak's a team I can't figure out. Be honest with you, they lost to Troy Athens by 13. With how much they got back, I mean, I know a lot about Allison Karpinski. You know what I mean? They're a center. She's a good player, very talented player. But still, you know, to start the year, you lose to Walled Lake Northern. Walled Lake Northern's not very good, and this was a team that also beat North Farmington the other night in the Walled Lake Showcase, and that was a shocker to me. Was when North Farmington lost 25-20. You know, they virtually played a Kensington Lake style game, and that's not North Farmington. That's not the North Farmington that I know. You know, even though Megan Carter's still out, you know, she won't be back till about January. But and then of course I look at Farmington, who lost by 14 to Livonia Stevenson. Of course, I'm going to really be honest with you. Farmington's not very good. You know what I mean? They're not. And they still got to play Harrison, North Farmington, and Lake Orion. That is not going to be an easy thing for Farmington at all. And it's going to be a tough situation over there. Troy, I know for sure, is 3-0 because they beat Waterford Mott, and they lost. No, take it back. They lost a tough one to Waterford Mott by 3, and then they lost, and then they had to survive Waterford Our Lady of the Lakes in overtime, whereas Rachel Grecki, their point guard, had to go off for 25 points. 25 points, that's half the points. I mean, when I look at Troy's next couple games, they play Troy Athens on Friday, and that's going to be an interesting matchup right there because when I look at the inside matchup, when I look at the inside game, of course, the guards, it's easier said than done. It's going to be Troy. But in the inside game, the interior game, I'm going to go with Troy Athens because the game's at Athens. And Troy Athens has been playing a lot better lately ever since the start. They lost to Stevenson early in the year. They didn't look good against the, and then, of course, they won some interesting games. They beat Royal Oak. That was one of them. Royal Oak I mentioned earlier. But one of the shocking games that I thought, of course, teams I can't understand to figure out is Birmingham Seaholm. Of course, the Maples, of course, January Hilaski, good coach. Of course, Mackenzie Harbort, one of the most premier players in the state, one in the county. I think she's the best player in the blue. When she took on Berkeley, only had 6 points against the Bears. Berkeley did a good job somewhere. And I noticed that when I looked at the film last year, when Berkeley limited Harbot, and that team, last year's Seaholm team that won 19 games, was much better than this year's Seaholm team. The problem is everybody knows who Harbot is now. And you look at that game, you look at how Mackenzie Harbort is not going to be, she's going to be noticed by a lot of people. Seaholm still has to play a very tough non-conference schedule. They got a huge one tomorrow night with Rochester. Of course, Rochester picked to finish second, according to the Matt Mowry on MI Prep Zone. I don't buy that at all with Rochester because I don't think Rochester's that good. But I'd be very surprised if Seaholm doesn't come out there and blow out Rochester. And also got to look at what Mackenzie Harbort did the other night against Royal Oak Shrine. 39 points. 39 points. That's the most a girl has ever scored at Birmingham Seaholm. And here's a girl that scored 33 points against Bloomfield Hills in a district in a pre-district game. That's shocking, to say the least. And to see that one, what happened in that game. Harbort, it looks like a lot of people are now going back on the Mackenzie Harbort bandwagon, but when I look at the games that Harbort needs to show up for, I think she failed the first test against Berkeley. The next 3 tests are going to be Lake Orion, I think Adams, and Stony Creek. Those 3 games are going to tell what Mackenzie Harbort is about. When you look at those teams, those 3 teams are going to defend, they're going to rebound, they're going to play. And of course, I've questioned Harbort's defensive mindset, and it's unfortunate. And in the films that I looked at her, of course, she didn't look good defensively. You know what I mean? She just did not look good defensively. If you want to be a good player, you got to be all over the place. And I don't think right now she's all over the place. I look at a girl like Hannah Hamay, for example, of course, at Lake Orion. Hamay is all over the place defensively. There's a reason why I think right now Hamay is a better player than Harbort. I still think she is because, one, I think she plays defense. Harbort is a pure scorer, yes, but Hamay can beat you in so many different ways, And then when I look at Lake Orion, they were tested the other night by Linden. Linden's not a bad team, you know what I mean? Taylor Smith had 18 points in that one. Megan Kinney had 13. But Evelyn Wishmeyer is starting to become a well-known player in Lake Orion right now. She's only a junior, and she had a heck of a game against Groves the other night. But let's be honest, Groves is not very good. I was when I looked at the book in that game, Michelle Meredith did not play against Redford Thurston. Redford Thurston's garbage. They are terrible. And to see what happened in that game was when Groves destroyed them 69-22. And their 2 wins this year, they beat Detroit University Prep, was not very good. They beat them bad. And Meredith at 15 points. And then when you look at the other game when they played Redford Thurston, Redford Thurston looked awful, and Groves blew them out. And they had to make a lot. Behind Shea Carter. Shea Carter's only a freshman, but you got to give the props there. But then, of course, playing Lake Orion, tough match for Groves. It was not going to be an easy game for Amos Thompson and the Falcons. They ended up getting whooped 53-24. And you got to give Steve Roberts a lot of credit for what he did in that game. Good defensive pressure. Now they get to play. Now they get to focus on Rochester for going out for the break. Then they got a brutal January after Farmington. They got to play Clarkston, Adams, Seaholm, and Avondale. Of course, Avondale had to survive the other day. Of course, they played Brandon, and basically they had to use a 10-0 run to basically survive that game. And that was stunning, to say the least. When you look at Avondale, of course, you got 2 big girls down the inside. You got Taylor Sartelli at the 4, and you got Smith down there, Elijah Smith at the 5, of course, to go with the Mason sisters at the guard spots. And that was shocking to see that they would have issues with Brandon only to survive on a 10-0 run in that one. And then, of course, when I look at the games around the league, other games around the area, of course, when I look at Bloomfield Hills, are they really playing somebody right now? Allen Park Cabrini was not very good. They blew him out pretty bad. And then Pontiac. Pontiac's not very good. My God. Until Bloomfield Hills plays somebody, I cannot trust Jeff Rubin's crew here, despite the fact they got Amanda Moss and Lauren Sape, and Amanda Sape, and also you got Catherine Prinna, and you got Sherry Jackson. I don't understand the format that they do. I just don't. And when you look at the situation over there at Bloomfield Hills, are they going to really? They don't have anybody that's tough on the schedule, and until they have to play North Farmington, who will hopefully have Megan Carter back, and also you got to play and Southfield Lathrop, who's my opinion one of the best teams in the county, in the league. Harrison, of course, I give Tim Micklash a lot of credit at Harrison for playing a nightmaric schedule, and with Jeff Rubin, I'm being honest, I'm very disappointed because you're playing teams that are below your level, below your competition, and to see you playing that type of schedule, it's not a good thing. When you look at, I feel like a lot of these other teams have been tested. Lake Orion, of course, been tested by Milford. Clarkson's been tested. You look at Adams, they've been tested. Oxford's been tested. Especially when you look in the league, Oxford's been tested, Orion's been tested, Troy's been tested. And Bloomfield Hills, I don't really think has not been tested yet. Avondale's been tested even, and also West Bloomfield. Let's give a lot of love to Matt Hilbers and his Laker team. Of course, they're led by one of the most underrated guards in the county, in Charlika Stubbs. Charlika Stubbs, of course, here's a girl that took over the point guard spot from Deja Dinkins. Of course, Dinkins transferred out from West Bloomfield to Rochester Adams, and it looks like the Lakers have not lost a beat with her in the lineup. Charlika Stubbs, I think, when I look at her, she's a good player. She's going to be a good, underrated player for this team. And when you look at West Bloomfield, and they got 3 years with her, and that's a good thing. You know what I mean? And look at that 8th grade class, that they're going to get. I think West Bloomfield is going to be an interesting team to look at, unless those girls don't go to Birmingham Marion, but they're very solid and very talented. But I think Charlika Stubbs is probably the most underrated player in Oakland County right now. I'm going to call it right now. I think Charlika Stubbs is going to surprise some people this year. with her game. She's a shooter first type guard. She can penetrate, she can score, she can pass well. Of course, you got Taylor Pierce the outside. You got Rachel Harnish the outside, Taylor Pierce inside. I mean, this Laker team, I think, is going to be fine. But the problem I see for them is size. I mean, that's going to be an interesting situation when West Bloomfield has to play a team with size like an Avondale. Of course, Avondale's got a lot of size up there, up front in that one. When you look at other teams around the area, Hazel Park won a game the other night. I was very impressed. They knocked off Redford Thurston pretty handily, 49-27. It's a huge win for the Vikings program. It's a stepping stone, I think, for that program to where they want to go over there. Of course, they played Novi earlier in the year, and they just did not look good in that matchup at all. I was not impressed with them. Hazel Park in there. And then, of course, but let's not forget, Redford Thurston's not very good. My God. I mean, it's hard for me to look at it when you look at Redford Thurston. And, they played Groves already. They played Hazel Park already. I mean, Redford Thurston, I don't understand why Redford Thurston is playing a lot of these OAA teams. You know what I mean? Especially teams that are not very good in the OAA. When you look at teams like Groves and Hazel Park, I mean, it's mind-boggling, I haven't been sold on Bloomfield Hills. I mean, Troy Athens, of course, I think they got a good nucleus there. A lot of juniors and seniors. They're inexperienced. Roy Oak's a mess. I think their team a mystery. I'm trying to figure that one out over there in Raven Country. But when you look at Berkeley's going to be solid. Of course, Zoe Anderson going over there, that really helped them. Helped especially in the interior when they knocked off Seaholm. Seaholm looked like for now that they turned the corner a little bit because of the because when Harbot scored 39, of course let's not forget Royal Shrine's not very good. I mean, Shrine's not. I mean, like I know they're a small school. I mean, like, but I just don't understand how it's probably either Haleski probably left Harbot in there and she scored all those points. Harbot's a 3-point shooter, penetrator, and that type. Excuse me. But heading into those final thoughts. I mean, like around the league, of course, Oak Park. I haven't heard anything much from them. They still have to play. They have a tournament coming up. Of course, you got Harrison. Of course, they're going to be playing again soon. Lathrop, of course, they're in another tournament. So I'm curious to see how these OAA teams are going to fare when we preview tournaments. Of course, you got the Falcon Invitational at Rochester coming up. And of course, you got and also you got the Lake Orion. Of course, you got a lot of teams going to go on their Christmas break. You know what I mean? Probably going to have a lot of scrimmages. You know what I mean? So it would not surprise me if a couple of these teams are going to do some scrimmages heading into their Christmas break to make sure that they're staying in shape and others enjoying their vacations heading into the campaign. But we'll see what happens heading into the year. A lot of questions. And also Southfield, of course, they played in that tournament over at they lost the tough one to Dearborn Heights Robichaud the other night. Of course, when Harrison was there, I was very I was very impressed with the Blue Jays, especially Christy Lynn Defoe. I think Southfield will give Berkeley problems. I really, really do think they're going to give them problems in that goal this year. I mean, but I still think the top two teams right now are Troy Athens and Berkeley. When looking, I know Southfield is very athletic, very talented, and also very much they're very much gonna have a huge say. Now, I'm not gonna say anything much of districts with Southfield because they're in a vaunted district with Firefield's Mercy in there, and also Detroit Renaissance in there. I mean, but for Southfield right now, they're in a good place right now. I think, in my opinion, heading into the my final thoughts. Of course, interesting games this week. Of course, Stony Creek, Oxford, Groves. You got Lake Orion playing Rochester Thursday night. You got Seaholm playing Rochester tomorrow night in a league game. You got Avondale, of course. Got Troy Athens Friday night. That's going to be a unique game. I think that's going to be in that game. I think that's going to be whoever uses their strength is going to win that game. I still think Troy's going to win that game pretty bad, but that may be an interesting game to intrigue. You know what I mean, to look at heading into the year. But we'll see what happens. And then of course a lot of these Christmas tournaments. You know what I mean. They're going to get a lot of these teams better. We'll see what happens heading into the campaign, But all right, now when we come back, everybody, we're going to talk about miscellaneous stuff here on OAA Now.
We own a Habitat home.
I love working on my Habitat home.
Soy dueño de una casa de Habitat.
My neighbor is a Habitat homeowner.
Being a Habitat homeowner has changed our lives.
My mortgage payment for Habitat is less than what I paid for rent.
Habitat for Humanity of Oakland County currently has homes available with mortgage payments lower than most rent payments. If you or someone you know needs decent and affordable housing, call 248-338-1843 or visit our website at habitatoakland.org.
Welcome back to OAA Now. I'm Sammy Taormina, blogger of the Dragon's Den, and one of the hosts between Taorminas on O1 TV. Of course, we got girls volleyball here to talk about here. Of course, the state released their honorable mentions are here. No doubt. Of course, everybody knows I'm not feeling the greatest. Got sinusitis, but it'll be all right. When you look at the volleyball, the first team here, I noticed in the all county volleyball team, of course, Drew Ellis released his poll. I was kind of surprised when I look at the poll around the county. Of course, I wasn't surprised about Hannah Murdoch and Corey Varney going in there for Lake Orion for Seaholm. It was but I was surprised that Taylor Dillinger was left out of the and that was, to me, that's probably one of those damning things I probably have seen in my life. Was when she was left out of the all-state team, and it was unfortunate. It was a bad situation over there, but I wasn't impressed with them. I wasn't impressed with the when I look at the all-state team from Drew Ellis. Of course, Drew Ellis, of course, follows me on Twitter, but I wasn't surprised that Murdoch and Varney were on there. Of course, I wasn't surprised that Lauren McLeod was also on there because I thought McLeod had a heck of a year over at Birmingham Seaholm for Heather Lippert and her crew. But, what I was surprised to see is that, and I'm gonna be honest, I was very surprised to see that, Taylor Dillinger was left off the team. To me, it was, like I said, it was ridiculous to see her not on the team. On the first team, Oakland County. That's the problem that I would have with Drew Ellis is why is Taylor Dillinger not on the team on the all county team? And it was pretty much, and that's one of the things that I questioned. But of course, when I see around here, of course, Ann Schleider, of course, for Birmingham Seaholm, she's on the second team. You got Madison Martin, she was on there, of course, and of course you got Abby Molosky, that freshman, who was very, very impressive. And, of course, you got Sammy Salmon, who's coming back next year. So a lot of people left out of the team, and I was kind of surprised about it. And to see most of these players left out, and it was disappointing. And, when you look at players like Emily Malowski, of course, of Clarkston, I got Nicole Wainer of Lake Orion. I got Natalie Wainer. I thought, I didn't think she got enough love. You know what I mean? For on the outside. I mean, because she was very, very talented in her mind. I mean, in my opinion. I mean, there were some of these players I thought really, really was people that were left out on there. I thought Kate Carey, another one, was left out. I still think that there were a lot of these girls that would be on the first team. But, it is what it is. Excuse me. When you look at the end of the year, of course, there's a lot of decisions. A lot of decisions that got to be come into play. I guess when you look at the situation, it is really, really much, somebody's picks to be first team, second team. You know what I mean? But I still think if I'm Clarkson, I'm raising my arms right now and saying like, well, my team beat Lake Orion in the district finals, and my two girls were left off the all Oakland County team, whereas Lake Orion's two girls were on the first team in all county, and that is something that I don't understand. To be honest with you, and this is me being a Lake Orion guy, is, well, I still feel like Taylor Dillinger is a first county player, all county, and I still think Emily Monowski, I still think she's going to be an all county player, but when I look at it right now, it's going to be a interesting situation heading into next year. In hockey, of course, you got Rochester United, very good. Bloomfield Hills United's very good. Lake Orion and Clarkson both struggling early in the year. Also, Troy United's decent. And you got Stony Creek. I thought Lake Orion beating Clarkson was a huge win for this team. When you look at the Dragons, this is a team, of course, Drew Casey's out for the year with the ACL injury he suffered in football, and I thought it ended up costing the Dragons big in the football season. But still, it's not an excuse, to see you're playing some good teams. I understand that. I still feel like a lot of those teams like Novi Detroit Catholic Central, you got UAD Jesuit, of course, who's going to be good. Those type of teams are very, very talented, and it is a situation in which you got to pick it up, you know what I mean? And I still feel like that this hockey team at Lake Orion can pick it up, but they got to put together some chemistry. Of course, I hate to use a comparison of Lake Orion to my Dallas Stars because, my Stars have been struggling. Of course, they're 11, 13, and 5. But it's very much looking like it right now. This is a team that has a lot of expectations to do well. Now, even though they're going to have a down year, but it's still mind-boggling to see a big team like Lake Orion, and they're struggling the way they did. Now, 8-0 against Clarkson. Now, that's a huge statement, but Clarkson's also not very good. You know what I mean? So you got to look at that situation. And of course, with Clarkson, of course, I'm not sure. I think Clarkson right now is still riding high on winning their second football state championship. And it wouldn't surprise me if they were still riding high. You know what I mean? Heading into that off season. You know what I mean? They're going to be motivated, of course, heading into that season. No doubt about it. But still, he's got all the winter sports to play. He got spring sports yet to play. You look at Clarkston, you know what I mean? Baseball is going to be all right. Softball is going to be very good. Got a lot of experience back. Got Candace Kitchen back. Lord Mallory Molloy back. I know those two girls. They drew against me, and I ended up beating them. So I know both those girls very well from their days when they were shot putters in track and field. A lot of in track and field, Clarkson's going to be better. A lot of people have said that to me. Of course, they got some good athletes. Merritt Canada's one of them. Of course, he does the jumps. Also got Nolan Erickson, very, very sprinty kid. I expect Clarkson Lake Orion to come down to the very end. It's going to be a close meet. I expect it to be a close meet. I still think that of course Clarkson's got a very good distance runner, but I still think Lake Orion's got a better distance program. For Stan Ford. But I think it's going to be a heck of a meet when Lake Orion and Clarkson meet. A lot of people look at the OAA as the big two. You know what I mean? You got Clarkson, Lake Orion. You know what I mean? Then, there's a big two, but Troy's pretty big. You got Bloomfield Hills is starting to come. You got Adams is a big school. All these schools are big schools. give the opportunities a chance, you know what I mean? Like, to say their piece, you know, that's my opinion. Of course, heading into the campaign, we've got wrestling here. A lot of people look at Clarkson. A lot of people look at Oakland County meets this weekend at Lake Orion. How interesting is this? You know what I mean? I still think the favorite is Novi Detroit Catholic Central, but I still think Oxford could give them a run. When I look at them, there's a lot of good individual talent going to be here at Lake Orion on Friday and Saturday. Of course, got the prelims. Of course, ON TV will be broadcasting that meet. So we'll see what happens. It'll be an interesting meet to look at heading into the year. In the world of wrestling, of course, got to give ON TV a lot of credit for going out there and bringing the sports community to us all. Of course, you know, they got Between Taorminas, of course, and then you got my podcast, you know. So, like I said, it's not going to be an easy situation. It's not going to be easy, but who knows? We'll see what happens heading into the campaign. Of course, when you look at my final, of course, bowling will be interesting this year. Boys and girls bowling. I still think it'll be interesting to see what happens there. I can't give you much because I don't know much actually right now heading into the bowling season, you know. And then of course swimming and diving, very interesting season. Of course Grove, Seaholm, they're the two teams I think to beat. You got Bloomfield Hills is very, very good as well. I still think Mid-Oakland County is probably the best area for swimming right now heading into the 2014-2015 campaign. Of course, we're getting really close to Christmas time, everybody, and also what I'm probably do next week is probably going to give each team heading into the year a wish list, all the 24 teams in the OA, like a wish list of what they've been good and what they've been bad, and it'll be very interesting. I think it'll be something that something that I would do heading into the campaign. My thoughts about each program, each athletic department, where they're going. But like I said, we'll see what happens heading into the season, and we'll see what happens heading into the campaign. It'll be interesting to see how we do. It'll be interesting to see how basketball does this weekend and how basketball does this week for all 24 teams in the league. Christmas tournament's coming up soon, and we'll see what happens. Okay, now for OAA Now, of course, I'm going to sign out here. Sammy Taormina. Hope I get better soon. I'll be 100%. Of course, I graduated this week, so I'm really happy about that. All right, everybody. Good night, everybody, and God bless us all.
OAA Now is produced at Orion Neighborhood Television, Lake Orion's community media outlet. To learn more about ONTV, visit our website at www.orionontv.org or call us at 248-393-1060.